I gotta hand it to Apple. They did two really incredible things yesterday. Two
Two.
really, and by the way, I hope the audio works. So if it doesn't work, Paul and I just had another great conversation. Two incredible things yesterday. One,
Mhm.
they kind of did what we thought they would do with AI. It's just sort of like blended in. It's not this sort of like, here's an app that's AI, although they have the playground thing, but whatever. So they did that really well. They also did a wonderful job to not sell more iPads.
I know that. Thank you. I wrote an article specifically for that reason. I I have been waiting. I have about $1,000 in PayPal. I've
Mm,
got like an iPad I can trade in. I have three, four, I guess $475 in Apple gift cards, and I'm like, I will buy an iPad Pro as soon as I get home from this trip if they give any indication that they're serious about this thing, and they gave zero indication.
yep.
So, I listen. I've beaten this topic to death. Apple has several iPads now. It is very clear that this one operating system does not address the needs of all of them. So, the thing I had written about a month ago was they should take the consumer, like consumption iPads, the mini and the regular iPad, and maybe the Air, right? And maybe that should be one thing, but whatever. And that's iOS. And this iPad OS should be the pro stuff. You can call it whatever you want, but background processes, sophisticated multitasking, just a couple of things, right? I am not suggesting put Mac OS on this thing. Any who thinks that way is missing the point. But yeah, there's just some deep level OS stuff they're just not doing there, and it's like emojis and stickers and $1,200 to start on an iPad Pro, whatever it is. And are you serious? This
Yep.
is an operating system that has a sophisticated video editor, right? This Final Cut Pro thing. That if you switch away from that app, just go back to the home screen, it stops exporting video because it doesn't support background processes. Like, are you kidding me? It has the most powerful processor that Apple makes. So anyway, I'm fascinated you latched onto that one thing because I specifically, that was my own thing. Like I was like, look, AI, yes, but I want to,
Yeah.
and I looked at everything. I looked at their developer docs. I'd be like, maybe I'm missing something. Not a thing.
Yeah, not unless they eke something out and like later update. But you feel like if that's a pretty notable, although like background tasks are not something maybe Apple really wants to highlight, and so maybe it ekes out. But
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's not in there.
Yeah.
So the one thing they did do for the iPad this year that they don't typically do is they brought some of the UI innovations, for lack of a better term, from the iPhone to the iPad at the same time.
Mhm.
Like the way this has typically gone is if Apple did things like let you arrange the icons wherever you want, 17 years later, or the tinting stuff and all that, like typically that would have gone to the iPhone this year and the iPad
Yep.
next year. So that's a step forward. I mean, that's, I don't want to celebrate that too much, but that's a change.
One thing that they showed off too that granted, it's a demo, it's polished, it may not work as well as whatever.
Mhm.
They had their notes app and they had that little magic wand and you circled the image and then you could do AI image generation.
Yeah.
All I could think about was how difficult it is to edit an image in Word. And it's like, that's not coming to Word.
It's like circle the search. Well, so, okay. If you want to be cynical, and it's easy to be cynical, you could look at a lot of the things and say, okay, we had this over here first, and we had this over here, And if you're an Apple guy with an iPhone and a Mac or whatever, you're like, yeah, I don't care. I just want it where I am, So that stuff kind of doesn't matter. But to me, the big takeaway was Microsoft a couple weeks ago announced this recall thing where everything stays in your device. No, it's going nowhere. The world exploded. All kinds of privacy security issues, supposedly. And then Apple announces exactly the same thing, except we're also going to the cloud. And everyone's like, oh my God, finally, someone got it right. It's like, guys. But the thing is, Apple did the thing that Microsoft didn't do. And I don't mean functionally. I mean by explaining why you should trust them, right? Microsoft has a kind of Google-like bubble they live in where they seem not to understand how the world feels about them. That all the crap they've been doing with like OneDrive and folder backup and all the pop-ups and ads and crap in Windows 11. Like, do you not understand if people are just like on the edge with you right now?
Right.
It's astonishing.
Yeah.
And
Microsoft has the technical ability to do what Apple does. There's no question about it.
yeah,
Like they can
do it better. They have more capacity.
But the problem is Microsoft has always failed on the messaging front, and that is what Apple does better than anybody else.
Yep. I think this was part of, this is before the Apple thing. I wrote a kind of a wrap up about the recall stuff. I know all these security researchers are patting themselves on the back like they did a good job, but those guys didn't prove anything. And if you look at what Microsoft changed, honestly, I don't think that's in response to any of that. Not really, other than to give the presence of addressing that stuff. The big change they made was making it truly opt-in, which is what they told us it was in the beginning. But anyway, they made recall opt-in, which I think was smart. To me, the rest of it is just theater. I mean, that's just details. But guys, spend more than 3 seconds explaining why there's a 17-second period in the presentation for the Copilot Plus PC where I think it was Yusuf Mehdi said, this thing adheres to our responsible AI principles. It's like, what is that, like written on a piece of toilet paper? What are you talking about? You can't, don't tell us exactly why this thing is trustworthy. Yeah. It boggles the mind that you announce something like that without understanding how people are going to do a record scratch. Like, wait, what did you just say? You got to explain that stuff. But they did a bad job.
The other thing that Apple kind of announced, and maybe I'm out of the loop on this one, but they announced like a cloud architecture data centers running all Apple silicon.
Right.
Which, is that new or like?
Yeah, it doesn't exist yet.
Right. Or like they didn't detail that out very much.
It's new. The other thing they just kind of casually throw it. You ever hear something like you're listening to a talk and you're actually paying attention, and then they say something that makes it seem like they might have explained it earlier and you missed it.
Yeah.
They said something like, it was almost, they didn't say it exactly this way. It was like, as you know, we have independent experts that are able to review the source code of the iPhone and prove that it does what we say it does. And we're doing the same thing in our data center. And I was like, wait a minute, what? What are you talking about? You never said anything like that before, unless I missed it, right? And I went back and I watched that part of it again. I didn't watch the whole thing again yet, but it still hit me the same way. Like they're acting like this makes any sense. Microsoft, by the way, this has a facility on their campus where any government, any company can come into a room and view the source code for Windows and all their other products, right? For the same exact reason that Apple is describing. So Apple's getting a bunch of press this morning for this like independent software review. They never even explained what it was.
Yeah.
Microsoft has had this for decades, not years, decades. And they just don't talk about it. This is what I mean. This is what you said, and what anyone who follows Microsoft knows. I mean, these people cannot explain themselves. They do have I think they have the answers, or the solutions in place, but they just don't know what to talk about. Like, it's so strange to me.
The other fun little anecdote too was, so all the iOS updates look fine, whatever. Whatever, Siri AI, that's a whole different conversation, but all the updates are fine. However, it felt like there was like a guy sitting off stage with like a sniper rifle pointed at Craig, and then at the very end he's like, oh yeah, and we're going to support RCS too, and then the guy just lowers the gun.
Yes. I'm surprised they even said it. If I was Apple, I would have left it just in the picture.
Yep.
They put up with all the features, Same thing with OpenAI. They got the same little throwaway line, Sam Altman was there in person, and they were not bringing that guy up. No. that weird robot, it's like, we like our people on stage to have personality. You're not going to fit in here. And then, also it's like OpenAI asterisk, we cannot wait to replace you, and don't worry.
Right. They literally said it on stage that, hey, you have Siri that uses their own whatever LLMs and that stuff in their own. That's what like that cloud data center came in and says like, oh yeah, you can also tap into ChatGPT, and they wasted no time to say there will also eventually be other models available.
Yep. And if you go and look at their printed announcement, I'm not going to get this exactly right, but there's a quote that says, and I think it's a quote. I think someone says this, like Kim Cook or somebody. When you use OpenAI, nothing is kept by them. They can't use it to train. They don't do anything. They don't know who you are. if you are an OpenAI customer and you want to log into your account, we'll let you do that. And it almost made it seem like if you do log into your account, you're an idiot. You know, like we'll let you screw that up. I will say too, just from kind of a messaging standpoint, the one thing Apple doesn't talk about is this default search on iPhone is Google, which
that's where
betrays all of your personal information. They don't really talk about that.
Nope.
They have this what happens on the iPhone stays on the iPhone kind of mentality, which is only true if you get rid of Google search, right? Which you have to do explicitly as a user. Speaking of opt-in versus optional, right? Which Microsoft just got a bunch of trouble for some reason. Well, not for some reason, but anyway, Apple did not, right? But now we have this OpenAI thing, and later other third-party LLMs and whatever. And this time they're like, yeah, no, we're going to be serious. Like, we're not sending your information to these things, and we're not even sending it to us. You know, and you're like, yeah, it's kind of how I think everything should work on the iPhone, but they don't really talk about how that's not the case. You know, interesting.
Yep. I'll be curious to see if there's ever a bidding war for that default position that OpenAI that they talked about. I mean, I
think there is an ongoing bidding war right now, and you know, this was rumored up, you know, last couple months, whatever, and they were able to reach a deal with OpenAI, and they were not able to reach a deal with Google. And I'm sure from Google's perspective, well, who knows? Maybe they just couldn't reach some bar, and it might even literally be quality, which would be terrible for Google. But there's so much money exchanging hands here. I'm sure they're trying to get a better deal this time. You know, they're like, we feel like we maybe got a little abused here. Who knows? I mean, maybe someday we'll find out. But yeah, there will be multiple choices for sure.
Yeah, it's a good event.
I think what they did was great.
Yeah.
And by the way, in sharp contrast to why the hell is Microsoft moving so fast on this? Like so recklessly, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Where Apple's like, look, we're going to do this measured thing. It's coming in over time. You know, people are like, not freaking out, but there are a lot of these reactions. Like, I don't know if you know this, but this AI stuff is not going to happen like immediately. Like it's going to come in over time. It will be in beta. It might be as late as spring next year. It'll probably be later than that, honestly, for a lot of it. Yeah, this is how Apple does everything. Remember when the iPhone 7 Plus came out and had 2 lenses and they were going to do portrait, right? That landed in beta 2 months after the phone shipped. And then, you know, when it took several months, that was like a feature for one version of the phone, you know? So yeah, it's going to take time. But you know what? Maybe this is the right approach to AI. Aren't we all a little skittish with this stuff? It's getting a little weird. Right? I'm not saying they're perfect, obviously. I have my complaints.